Right.
sharing real things, right? So that is good. And I know when you were talking earlier, and we'll talk a little bit more about the different books in the series, but you were talking about earlier waiting, and we kind of talked a little bit about that before we started recording for the show. And I think that your story is encouraging, um, regarding you and your husband, and so if you
Mhm.
would share a little bit about that, I think that would encourage someone listening today.
Of course. Yes, waiting. I think we all experience it in some way, shape, or form. But even, and that also ties into my writing because before I was married, I primarily wrote young adult fiction because that was my audience. I'm a teacher, I have students. So those are also suspenseful stories. But as God wrote my own love story, I really felt He was also calling me to write for women now that I could
Mm.
more fully understand the beauty of His design and romantic love. And yes, as you were saying, I had to wait. I was in my early 30s, waiting for God's choice for me. And I will say it was more of an active waiting. I wasn't just sitting around every Sunday in the same pew. I was going to Bible studies. I was looking for service opportunities with people my age. And in today's culture where it's so almost isolating in the sense that everyone's behind a computer screen,
Mhm.
really getting out there and doing new experiences, meeting new people. You never know how God is going to write your story. And mine, I met my husband washing hubcaps at an outreach for single moms. It was a back to school event, and the young adults, they called us young adults. We were like career adults, but they called us young adults. We were all, business or pursuing master's degrees or something. And this was our outreach to the single moms in the church. And so I got on hubcap duty with these two or three other guys, and there was I did not know he was my husband at the time. I was like, oh, he's way too cool for me. I'm just gonna wash my hubcaps. And he's like, no, let me show you how to use this pressure washer. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he was so friendly and outgoing, and just took the initiative and inviting me. I think the next thing he did was invite me to Ken Ham, was in town. He's like, "Hey, we should like go see him together." And I'm like, "Okay." So again, one thing just led to another, but God did that. If I had written my own story, it would not have looked anything like this. I would have met him in my 20s. Probably I would have come up with this whole fictional setting. As a writer, I like to be in control. I like to know where this plot is going. And it gets really frustrating when writer's block hits and I don't know that. But the same is also true in my personal life. Sometimes we hit these walls and we don't know what the next step's going to be. And God's like, you got to wait. You got to wait for me to move you from this job to another place. Or you got to wait for me to meet the person I have for you. Or you've got to wait then to start a family. There's so many times God calls us to wait. And I'd like to say it gets easier, but it really doesn't.